We spend so much time trying to change our thoughts, but what if the fastest way to change your mind is actually through your breath? In this episode, nervous system expert JJ explains why your breathing patterns influence everything from anxiety and burnout to emotional processing, resilience, and even performance. We talk about how the body stores stress, why emotions get stuck, and how breath work can unlock memories and healing that talk therapy sometimes can't reach, and practical tools that you can start using today to re regulate your nervous system. This is one of those conversations that will completely change the way that you think about breathing. Welcome to In Alignment. I'm Annie.
And I'm Marissa. You were meant to find this today, and we're so glad you're here. Hi, JJ. Welcome to In Alignment. We're so excited to have you here. I would love if you could start off today just introducing yourself to our audience, telling us a little bit about you and what you do.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much, Marisa and Annie, for having me here. We had to wait a little longer than expected, and I know it's going to be totally worth it for both of us, for all of us, and especially the audience. My name is JJ Ruescas. I'm a human optimization strategist. In other words, I'm tinkering continuously with the nervous system of a person in order to find what really works for the individual to, first of all, avoid burnout, and in second place, achieve optimal performance. And that doesn't relate only to the professional career. At any moment we're performing, and in the connection with our friends, peers, family, partners, in the connection with our own work, in our self-connection. So what I do is basically be my own guinea pig, try multiple things, from the more biohacking, the more emotional hacking, the mental hacking, and see what works and what doesn't work, and based on that, create frameworks that work for people.
Amazing. And for the audience, JJ and I actually met because I went to one of his breathwork classes in Austin. And I've done a lot of breathwork, but I had never experienced anything like that before when I went to your class. Both in terms of the way that we went about breathwork and also the results that I felt afterwards. So when you're talking about human optimization and the nervous system and performance, can you tell us a little bit about what that actually means? And then also some of the modalities, because breathwork is one way, but how do we improve those things?
Yeah, and it is fantastic. Thanks, Marisa. I remember vividly the day you came to the session for the first time, and it was very shocking for your nervous system in a positive way. So thankfully, I have here in Austin and now touring many countries, just came back from Europe, etc., on a protocol that I developed called the Oxygen Reset Framework, or the Oxygen Reset Breathwork Protocol. And my approach to breathwork is very much aligned with the how do we take ownership or agency of our own state of being at any moment. What does that mean? The only constant in our life as humans is breathing. And when we're going through ups and downs, we have breathing patterns, breathing signature patterns, how I call it. And so when a person is, for example, in a dysregulated way, feeling anxious, overwhelmed, you name it, there is a breathing pattern. The majority of people, they don't realize what is that breathing pattern. It just goes over their heads. And also when we are in a calm state, or in a state when we are attentive and at the same time engaged, but not overly engaged, that flow state, the moment when you lose track of time, you're so in the present moment, there's also a breathing pattern. The majority of people also goes over their heads. And so my approach towards breath work is, instead of creating a one methodology to try to fit everyone else into, I go into breath variability training, meaning allowing the person to experience a plethora of breathing techniques, which means not only the technique, but also the tempo, the speed, the depth, creating tension, relaxing the tension, you name it. And so that signals their nervous system a change. You follow me so far? There. Nice. And so when we are signaling that change, two things happen. First of all, stress that has been accumulated offloads finally, because we've been holding on to that and we may not realize it. But at the same time, it allows the system, the nervous system, to feel relaxed under stress. That's another definition of performance. Great performance happens when, despite of the stressor outside or internally, we're able to be present with what we're doing and make things best of every single moment.
To make this really concrete, can you explain the difference between the breathing pattern when you're really stressed and anxious versus when you're calm?
Yeah. When we are stressed, is by definition that our breathing pattern goes to the upper chest. And also, you're gonna notice that it is shallower, obviously over here to the upper chest, and it may have, let's say, about between 17 and above breaths per minute. I am the geek who's constantly taking a look at people's respiratory rate. You don't need to be like that, but you will notice if you count, for example, 10 seconds, how is your breath? You're gonna notice that, oh, my body is feeling stressed. So that is not the mind signaling stress, the mind labeling stress, but oh, my body's feeling stressed. Even another one, it is the musculature in the shoulders or the tightness in the abdomen. All of those factors signify a stressor state or a stressed state. On the flip side, when a person is fully regulated, and I'm gonna go ask you later, Marisa, how did you feel after the breathwork session? What it happens is that their breathing is unnoticeable. They sometimes even don't think that they are breathing, but they are. But it's so smooth, so relaxed, and mostly goes to the lower belly, right? And at that same moment, there is a felt sense of a deep sense of relaxation in the musculature. The mind might be at a calm state. If it has ideas, they are not lower quality ideas. They are or silent or very novel ideas. So that is another way to describe optimal breathing.
So, when you're in a state of anxiety or panic versus calm, it affects your breathing. But what I think is
Mhm.
really cool about what you're saying is that we can actually, on the reverse side, we can change our state through our breath. And it's not just calming down our body, but what you were saying, it's also releasing physical stress. And
Mhm.
also there's some emotional release as well. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm gonna tackle this from two angles. First, it's very on point when you mentioned that, for example, when the body's feeling anxious or is having a panic attack, which has happened to so many people, what is the breathing signature and the physiological and the psycho-emotional markers? What are those ones? Breathing is they cannot control it. Second, their thoughts are completely out of the place and their emotions are overwhelmed. So let's take those three elements as the blueprint of a panic attack, right? Now, what happens when you have two of those three instead of the three? Is that a panic attack? Not necessarily, right? Because the recipe requires three. The recipe requires three. So, and you have experienced this one, Marisa, correct me if I'm wrong. But in the breathwork session, for example, I'm getting people to breathe in it's not this organized breathing pattern. There is some cadence. There is intensity, of course. And so the nervous system of the person, not the mind, the nervous system thinks panic attack. And then it realizes, wait a second, emotions are not overwhelming. Sensations, yeah, I can feel my body for sure, but it doesn't feel like a panic attack. So that we are training the system to be regulated even under a stressor. In this case, the breathwork protocol that I have is basically a workout.
I definitely felt that. So that was what was so different about my breathwork experience working with you versus what I've done through apps and other like in-person breathwork is typically when I've done breathwork in the past, it's getting into, like you were saying, the deep belly breathing and getting into a relaxed state. But during your class, we did simulate more of like that panic attack feeling.
Exactly.
And I felt an intense release from that. Sometimes tears. I actually want you to talk about the tears thing because
Yeah.
that is a whole other thing about how our body releases emotion, but
Stress.
stress, sorry. Yes. But yeah, getting myself into that state, which I had only ever experienced before during intense panic, allowed
Yeah.
my body to release in a deeper way than I had
Yeah.
experienced before.
Yeah. And what you said is very on point because some people only allow themselves or their system allow themselves to process emotions. Instead of releasing, I call it processing because it is like when we eat something, we digest, we metabolize, we process that meal. and then we extract what is nourishment for the body, and we let the rest go away, right? So in the same sense, emotions are, as I mentioned, part of this 3-element equation: the breathing, the story. Let's put it this way: breathing and physicality, the story that a person is telling in their mind, and the emotion that is being emerged. If I would use an analogy, for example, Tony Robbins called it the triad. Has a little bit of a variation, but one of those ones is the physiology, then the attentional aspect, and the emotion. In my case, I'm focusing on the emotion. Every breath, Marisa, has a type of breathing associated. What is the type of exhale that we do when we are happy? Ha, ha, ha. We call it a laughter. It's an exhale.
I never thought
What
of
is it?
laughter as an exhale. That's so
It's
interesting.
an exhale. It's an exhale, right? Think
Yeah.
about it. Like we're cracking up, we're exhaling faster. Now, what about the type of breathing about grief? Is the sobbing, right? It's multiple inhales and letting it fall, right? And so how does an actor is able to achieve an emotion without manufacturing with the mind? Because if I told you, Marisa, feel happy, feel happy, feel happy, feel happy, it's not going to work like that. You need to neurochemically create the emotion in your system so that it gets expressed or it gets displayed if you would be an actor. In this case, for every single human, what we do is many emotions get stuck, meaning the breathing pattern got stuck, the musculature got stuck, and therefore the mind gets stuck and the emotion gets stuck. So basically emotional constipation, to put it simple, right? And so by engaging in breathing patterns that allow a continuous breath flow, obviously in an organized way or semi-organized instead of chaotic way, we're sending a message to the system that it is positive, that it is safe to digest an emotion. And so some emotions may come in tears, some emotions may come simply in laughter, some emotions may come in pure peace. And what I have learned, Marisa, is that the way that the body expresses non-verbally could be completely different from the story of the mind. Completely different. Quick story. This one was maybe 4 years, maybe 5 years ago. I was leading a private breathwork session for a nonprofit organization. They hired me, very well known here in Austin. So in the middle of the session, and I don't think I told you this story. In the middle of the session, there is this woman that throughout 80% or 70% of the breathwork session, she starts sobbing and sobbing and sobbing throughout the session. Everyone's still breathing, she's still breathing, but just tears in her eyes. So I approached and I hold her hand, and I told them, if you need it, I'm here with you. And in the meantime, keep breathing, everyone, right? Everyone's breathing. And so we finished the session, and I usually get people on a circle and we exchange words, share what was the experience, because everyone had a different experience. And she raises her hand to share. And in my ignorance, Marisa, I thought this woman is going to say how sad she was because she was sobbing. No, 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 no. She said, I've never felt that much gratitude in my life.
Wow.
Wow. And
Well,
you can feel the entire room, boom. So the
yes.
story, it could be something different from the physiology. And even as babies, there is no story. Yet we express through tears, through crying, through yelling, through so many ways. And there's no story in the mind.
Wow. So the story that we tell ourselves is a different story than what our body is maybe experiencing.
Very likely many times. We're trying to give it a meaning to what our body's feeling. So if you feel butterflies in your stomach, what does the culture say?
Excited or nervous?
Exactly, not nervous. Exactly, right. If I feel tension here, whenever you feel tension in your body, where does it feel in
Well,
your body, Maris?
mine is always in my neck and shoulders. So
Neck and shoulder.
so tight.
So now you have learned that means that your body is
Tense for
what
me.
are the emotions? Tense. Exactly. So that is what we call interoception. So interoception is our best guess from the mind to detect what is the body's information sending to us. What's the nervous system sending? For some people, as you mentioned, nervousness or excitement is the butterflies in the stomach. For other people, it could be gastric issues. So the sensation itself has to be, we need to be curious about that sensation so that whenever we spend more time with our bodies, then we know that, oh, that is what it means. In your case, that's what it means tension. That's what it means excitement in the tummy. I can feel in my head, for example, literally in my head, when I feel clear or my mind is very serene, I feel this tingling sensation throughout the skull. Very, very tiny, very tiny. So that's how this nervous system is configured. For you, it could be something different.
I want to dial in on that a little bit because that has been a really big unlock for me and my healing journey, my nervous system, improving my sleep, improving my mood. Everything has been, for so long, I was really living in my head, and I was able to tell whatever story I wanted to tell. And I was very disconnected from my body. And I found that during breath work, I was able to connect back with my body, be in the present moment, and release things that I might not have even realized were there.
Yeah, exactly.
And is that just, yeah, I guess, how does that, why does that work?
Because I will put it based on the science. And I have here, I don't think I showed you, but we have a study that we're performing right now with the people from the Muse headbands. This headband, have I told you about this? Do you know what is this headband?
You told me a little bit about it, but will you explain it for people who are just listening?
So for people that are listening, I'm holding in my hand a very modern EEG, electroencephalogram. And it's an electroencephalogram. It measures your brain waves. This model measures also the prefrontal blood flow, meaning the default mode network brain area blood flow. It's very affordable. We're partnering with these ones, and we decided to run a study to see in 8 weeks of the protocol that I have, how do people react through those 8 weeks. So what we started realizing is the following. First of all, why does it work? Because it works, right? Why does it work? So the theory is the following. Our body is breathing at a cadence that got used to. That doesn't mean that it's the optimal in the first place. If you increase a little bit more the oxygen, if you improve, I should say, the oxygenation, your body is going to start feeling very good. That's the reason if you stop for 5 minutes or 3 minutes and just focus on your breath, you're going to feel fine for sure. What we're doing with my breathwork protocol is we're taking that to the other extreme, meaning we're hyperoxygenating the body or overoxygenating the body and then giving it a cadence. So we're hijacking in a positive way then two things. First of all, the nervous system and the feeling, because the tingling sensations, the aliveness, the pulsing sensations, it's undeniable that a person is going to feel that, especially someone like you or me that used to be hyper living in our minds, in our heads. This one brings us back into the body immediately, right? So talking about embodiment, this is the epitome of embodiment. Probably breathwork and psychedelics, I would say. Both of those things, right? Psychedelic as another technology as well. So that is one thing, is the embodiment, the almost immediate embodiment when there are techniques that are this type of powerful. Now, that doesn't mean that functional breathing, relaxed breathing are not going to have the same effect. They will. But the length of time and the practice that is required for that, like going to a Vipassana retreat, a silent meditation retreat, is 10 days. And it's not that many people can do it. So in this other one, we have another vehicle. That doesn't mean that this one is good or bad. There are different vehicles to reach embodiment. That's one thing. The second thing that we're theorizing, Marisa, is that by engaging into this type of superventilatory pattern, meaning increasing more inhale, increasing more exhale, changing the speed, etc., that is removing, guess what? Brain blood flow from the prefrontal cortex.
Hmm.
Default mode network is where science believes the chit-chatter of the mind happens.
So you're moving the blood flow from the place where the chit-chat is happening in your brain.
You're not providing oxygen. In other words, you're not providing oxygen for the chit-chatter. If there's no oxygen for chit-chatter, then there's no chit-chatter. And then other parts of the brain get engaged, and therefore those emotions or feelings or memories that you didn't realize that you had come to the surface because the chit-chatter is not blocking them.
Wow. That makes so much sense to me. Yeah. When the chit-chatter is turned off, we can hear those things that have been suppressed for longer.
Literally.
Wow. And I know you've worked with a lot of women who,
Yep.
have spent years holding their breath, so to speak. I'm one of those
Yep.
people. What is that for someone listening? What does that look like if you've spent years kind of in this shallow breathing pattern? And then I want to
Mhm.
get into how do you start to train this muscle? Because
Mm.
it took me a long time to get into breath work because at first it was so uncomfortable. Like you were just saying, a 10-day silent meditation would be impossible for some people to start. And breath work is, to me, I now view it almost like a sport. You have to start
Yeah.
and build your way up. So if you're
Yeah.
starting, I guess, yeah, what is it sort of like in your body if you've been living for years and years in this kind of chronic shallow breathing state? And how can you start to shift out of that?
Shift, our mission is simple to help women transform their lives by shifting the patterns that are keeping them stuck. Insight is powerful, but insight without action doesn't change your life. If you're navigating a breakup, anxiety, burnout, a career transition, grief, body image struggles, or you just have this feeling that you're meant for more, there's a version of you who you're ready to become, and we'd love to help you step into her. We do that in two ways through Shift. The first is through our one-on-one coaching, where we help you understand the patterns that have been running your life, build the skills to respond differently, and create the kind of lasting change that transforms your relationships, your career, your health, and the way you feel every day. The second is the Shift, our 21-day self-guided transformation program designed to help you change the emotional patterns beneath your health, relationships, career, and everyday life. Through daily lessons, guided somatic practices, journaling, and real life application, you'll learn the Shift method and begin building new emotional patterns until they become your default. And if you're looking for ongoing support, our Shift membership launches this September. Through live coaching, guided practices, a supportive community, and a growing library of tools, you'll have everything you need to make emotional health something you practice, not just something you think about. Learn more at shiftinto.co.
Great. Let's talk about a spectrum. This is a spectrum, Marisa. So we were talking about the Vipassana, let's say to name it a point in time. For those who don't know what a Vipassana retreat means or what is it is a type of silent meditation retreat when you don't talk to anyone for 10 days and you have to sit for about 8 to 10 hours meditating every day, focusing on your breath and in physical sensations. It's painful, yes. It turns like hell, yes, it is. But it's very effective too. So that is long stay, minimal impact. I would say minimal micro impact, and then boof, a big impact. While in the opposite end, we have I will call it super ventilation. So that to make things clearer, we have different types in this spectrum. On one side, we have unconscious breath. We don't realize that we're breathing, but we're breathing. It could be optimal or suboptimal. Then we have functional breathing. Okay, let's do box breathing. Let's do alternate nostril. A very peaceful, structural, and short practices. Then we have the vipassanas, let's say, right? That is long stay, but still focus on the breath, etc. And then you have superventilation. Superventilation is what you've seen with me. It is the huffing and puffing in a structured way to allow quicker release or quicker offload of stress. So in this spectrum, when a person, especially a woman that has been living in suboptimal respiration for decades sometimes, first of all is to understand that they did not know that they forgot when they got into this one. What does that mean? Not only for women, men too. Let's say throughout our upbringing, or even in being a young adult, if someone had an injury, whether it's like an accident or even developmental trauma, that force the body to armor. What does armoring mean? If, for example, you know that impact is coming, your body does, right? And it holds like this and it's preparing for impact. So that armoring, when the nervous system doesn't realize that there is no more threat, it keeps holding it. That turns into dysfunctional breathing. Right? Now, how to start getting out of this cycle of dysfunctional breathing? The first thing is measuring. How do we measure if we're in functional or dysfunctional? This is a test that we do with everyone. Do you want to do it with me?
I would love to.
Okay, it's going to take about 40 seconds, less than that probably. Sounds good? I'm going to explain this to you. I'm going to explain also the listeners. For those who cannot watch this one but are listening, we're going to explain. So this is called the BOLT score, BOLT. And it represents what is the sensitivity to carbon dioxide. So let's go a little bit onto the geek side of this. We humans breathe more, not because we need more oxygen, but because our body is hypersensitive to carbon dioxide. Now, there is a paradox. It's not that oxygen good, carbon dioxide bad. It's not like that. We need both elements. It's, how I see it's a yin yang in different proportions. If we have too much oxygen, our arteries and our veins constrict and blood flow doesn't work very good. Once we achieve a respectful amount of carbon dioxide, it's a vasodilator. The veins open up, more flow of blood, and therefore better circulation. Pretty simple. So if we have a low tolerance to CO2, we're constricting the veins, and you can name it, it's less blood flow to the brain, and all the repercussions that come with that. Basically, we're getting dumber and dumber and dumber, one breath at a time. Right. So what we're gonna do is this: you're gonna do it with me, and then I'm gonna do it with you. So do you have your phone with you, Marisa?
I do, but it's filming me.
Great. So I will do this. I will use my phone. So here you can see how I have the timer here, right?
Perfect.
So I'm going to breathe normally through my nose, exhale, and hold at the bottom. Well, I'm gonna pinch my nose, and that's when I'm gonna start this one, the timer. It's gonna take a couple of seconds. Please don't get bored. If you're driving, we did not hang up with the call. It's just me doing a silly experiment, okay? And then I'm gonna pinch my nose and I'm gonna press pause. And let's see how long do I have it there. Sounds good?
Great.
And we're gonna do the same with you. So I'm gonna control. So I'm gonna show you first.
I'm so curious. I've not been. Okay, let's do you first.
Yeah, let's do it with me first. So I'll be the guinea pig and then you're next. Okay. I'm gonna go silent. And you can narrate what's happening, Marisa.
Okay, so JJ is breathing right now, and he's getting ready to pinch his nose. Okay, and now he's starting the timer. So basically, I think he's exhaled everything, and now he's exhaled everything, and the timer is going, and we're going to see how long he can basically hold at the bottom. I don't want to throw him off, but we're already at about 20 seconds, which is impressive. Wow. I feel like I'm so curious what mine is going to be compared to this. Okay. How many seconds did we get? 38.
So let me explain what I was doing. I exhaled. Normally, I didn't push. Normal exhale. I pinched my nose, and I waited for the first sign of air hunger. It wasn't a competition. I was allowing my body, going back to the interoception, to tell me what was the first need of air, the first air hunger sensation. In my case today, it was twitching in my diaphragm. Sometimes it is here in the neck that constricts. Sometimes it is the eyes. Sometimes the mind says, oxygen, right? It could be all of those things. We're waiting for the first air hunger sign, and that's when we pause. We know that we went beyond it. If you notice, Marisa, I pinched my nose, and the inhale was very normal, like
Right.
very normal. You will know that you went beyond your comfort zone if you do. I will notice it before, and that's okay if that happens. Now we know. Sounds good.
So it's not that you're trying to see if you can, like, how long you can hold your breath there. It's first sign of air hunger. Okay.
Exactly. So it could be pelvic floor constricting. It can be the as I mentioned, the throat. It's very common. The throat, twitching in the chest, anything, and then you unpinch. That's it. There is not a competition here. Sounds good. Okay, so I'm gonna narrate for the audience.
Yeah. So tell me what to do.
Yeah, you just breathe through your nose, take a few normal breaths, relax your shoulders, relax your eyes if you want. Take a normal breath. Yeah, you can close your eyes. About 4 more breaths at this rate. And when you feel that your system is getting more and more relaxed, that's when at the end of the exhale, normal exhale, we're gonna pinch the nose. Yes, that's right. Yeah, so Maris is getting ready to pinch her nose for those listening, and she just pinched her nose. Awesome. Great. That's right. Now she's holding her breath. First sign of air hunger.
Okay.
Slow it down, slow it down, slow it down. You notice how it went very abrupt, right?
How many seconds was that? I'm scared.
16.
16. Yeah. Okay. I have work to do.
The majority of people have around that. So tell everyone, what did you feel?
So I've always felt this with breath work, but I get really, my first instinct is like almost like a panic sensation.
Mhm.
The way I would imagine it is if you are someone who's like maybe afraid of diving underwater and like the
Exactly.
feeling of needing to swim back up to the surface and
Mhm.
how I have, I think I feel it a little bit, yeah, like in my stomach maybe and a little bit in my throat.
Right.
But for me, unless I feel this less and less during a longer breathwork session, but in a longer
Mhm.
breathwork session, I'm more in tune with how my body's responding. When I'm doing something ad hoc, like right now, it does feel more of like a from the brain, like we need to
Exactly.
breathe.
Exactly. Marisa, let me ask a question. You don't need to answer it. Did you have any experience as a kid when you felt that you were going to drown?
I was never like close to drowning, but when I was younger, we had to do I did swim team and dive team. And I remember, you know, like having to hold my breath for long periods of time and being really panicked about being able to like
Yeah.
get back up to the surface. And so
Yeah.
that's,
Did this exercise brought back some of those sensations?
yeah. And you know what? That's probably why that's how I described it is like needing to get back up to
Exactly.
the surface. Wow.
Exactly.
That's so interesting.
Imagine this, Marisa. With an exercise like this, we're able to excavate memories that have been printed in your nervous system for decades.
I mean, yeah, that's what I think is with these longer breath work sessions. And I
Mhm.
do want to get into like some of the, there's real health benefits to this.
Yeah.
Like that you've mentioned nervous system, but like, why do we care about nervous system? The inflammation and like it helps our immune system, all of these things when our nervous system is regulated. But the other
Yeah.
thing is, I think, at least for me, I have realized how many old stories, old experiences are driving my present day experience. And through breath work, you mentioned an emotional release. I've been able to release things that are not coming from now. They're very
Exactly.
old. And
Exactly.
if you're in talk therapy or something, you might talk about these old experiences, or you might not even remember that you need to talk about them. But we've talked so much about the fact that our minds and our bodies do not speak the same language. And so
Mhm.
I have thought for so many years, I processed that. I talked about it. I'm over it. And in these breathwork sessions, it's a totally different level.
Yeah, of course. Talk therapy and breath therapy are different technologies.
Yes. Yeah.
We need both for sure. And when.
And I think if you're someone like me, and it sounds like you were, if you have a very chatty mind and you're very analytical, sometimes doing, too much talk therapy without the other support just keeps you in that loop in your mind.
Correct.
And dropping into the body is a totally, totally different experience. So
Exactly.
that's why
So,
for me, I've released tears. I mean, the
right.
biggest thing is like for me, a breathwork session can be more effective in releasing my muscular tension than a massage.
Yeah, yeah. Look at that. So, for example, and that you're not the first one who tells me that. Some people tell me, "Oh, I've come to the breathwork chiropractor and massage." They call it the breathwork chiropractor because their bodies feel so relaxed after that.
Yeah, it's
So,
amazing.
two things that I wanted to mention. First of all, you asked me how do we start retraining, especially a woman's nervous system or breath that has been this dysfunction. First, by measuring Bolt score. So the Bolt score that we did right now, yours the normal one would be 20-ish. You're around 15 or so. And now there are training for this. And it's not big training that you have to do a breathwork session. Actually, I would recommend to start with the opposite. Start with functional breathing, 5 minutes per day. 5 minutes, yeah. Because imagine if we need to work out our muscles, and my muscles, I need a dumbbell of, let's say, 40 pounds. You may need another dumbbell that is 20 pounds, who knows? But that requires a weight that corresponds to what the person needs in terms of their physicality. While breathing, since we're doing repetition over repetition, That's the beauty. We need just short periods of training to start having great outputs. So measuring the BOLT score is the first step. With that, we can understand what are the psychophysiological, emotional aspects. We just talked about how you had this sensation of trying to come to the surface, right? So there is definitely something psycho-emotional there. Definitely. And so the more that we start training with you, let's say that your protocol for the next week, and I challenge you to do this, Marisa, would be to inhale for 4 nose, let's say, exhale for 5 with the nose, and hold for 2. Something simple. Inhale 4, exhale 5, hold for 2 for 5 minutes per day. So you're starting to send information to your messages to your system that it's okay to be holding at the bottom. And then you can increase to 3 seconds, to 4 seconds, to 5 seconds the breath hold. So by doing that and you're being regulated, being relaxed, your body's going to start learning, oh, this is safe. This is not like when we were in the swim team. And it gets updated. Instead of outdated, the system gets updated to the present moment. That's one way.
Wow. What are some of the benefits of that? I mean, again, just to really put a concrete answer to this, because I think the term nervous system regulation is everywhere. And I just want to explain from your perspective, like if someone was to say, okay, I'm going to start with 5 minutes a day. I'm going to really invest in training this muscle. Like what types of results do you see from people who do this work?
Yeah, there are two angles. The first one is obviously respiratory capacity and respiratory efficiency overall improves, meaning they feel less breathless, they feel more at peace because obviously they're having better oxygenation to their body, to their brain that signals the rest of the body, a more relaxed state. Actually, right now I'm working actually with a woman in Greece that we're exactly doing this. And she is in week number 4 of a 10-week training that we have with her. And she just texted me today saying, I'm feeling so relaxed because the thing that she was not feeling when she started working with me, she told me I'm constantly always at the edge of a nervous breakdown. And so we started realizing that her nervous system, especially talking about her brain, her breath, was dysfunctional. So in 3 weeks or so, she's feeling amazing. Now, that doesn't mean that, oh, everything is going to be sunny. No. We don't train for the hypothetical or the utopian case of everything is going to be rainbows and unicorns. We train for those hard days. There is this, funny to say, another Greek poet called Archilochus who used to say, we don't raise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. We don't raise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. Why does it matter in terms of breathing? Because I'm training this woman not to be happy and be at peace in the easy moments. I'm training her so that when the storm hits the boat in her life, she can come back quicker to the breathing pattern of regulation.
That is so, I love that you said that because also at Shift, we talk a lot about building our capacity for stress. We are never going to be able to rid our lives of stress, but we can increase our capacity to handle stress and thinking about breath work as one of those ways that we can do that. So it's like if someone says something that upsets you, if you have a hard day at work, if you are taking care of a parent and you're feeling drained, practicing breath work and supplying more oxygen to your brain, retraining your nervous system, or it's like settling your nervous system will make those moments feel less manageable. And maybe you won't fly off the handle with anger, despair, rage. You're able to kind of come back to peace in something that would have previously rattled you, which I think is incredible.
Yeah, and you can still experience the anger, the rage, but instead of them taking control of you, you process the emotion, you extract the lesson, allow the system to get rid of that, and then you move on. And so at some point, Marisa, once we start engaging more with breath awareness, this kind of breathing training, nervous system upgrading or updating even at some point, then the body feels safer to experience any sort of emotions, not only the tough ones, because obviously here, especially women in America have been taught not to experience what?
Emotions. We don't want to be emotional.
Exactly. But by doing so, we're constricting the mind. And so the moment that we train the system to, oh, you are allowed to experience anger in a safe, in a healthy way, then the system says, we can do it. And anger turns into determination. It's beautiful. Or even by constricting our emotional range, we equally constrict on the opposite end of that emotional range, which is pleasure. Meaning Many people cannot experience enough pleasure. Their systems freak out. It's too much pleasure. Shut down, right? Going offline. So
So many people describe themselves as being numb. And I think that's what
exactly,
it's like it's not only that you don't experience the bad, you can't experience all of those good things.
exactly, exactly. So at some point, we make peace with the emotions that our body is experiencing, and we treat them as teachers, not from a theoretical point of view. I still feel anger, I still feel sadness, I still feel grief, but each one of those emotions turn into something so meaningful, understanding that this is what my body is capable of doing. And thanks to that we have poetry, that we have dance, that we have arts and beauty, and that we can express through other people in many more ways than only with words how we feel, right? So, yeah.
You said that when we allow ourselves to experience these emotions, the body processes them and then we can move through them.
Mhm.
I think that's really interesting because something that I think I at least thought, and I think a lot of people think this is, I don't want to, maybe we suppress the anger, we suppress the pain because we don't want to feel that and we don't want to be stuck with it. But what
Mhm.
you're saying is allowing ourselves to feel and process it, we actually can release that and it doesn't
Correct.
get
Exactly.
stuck.
Exactly. And it is a miscalculation of the mind, the not allowing, because the mind thinks if I experience this emotion, call you name it, label it the way you want, I'm going to get stuck here. But that's not how the metabolism works. We're in constant flux of biochemistry. So it's a miscalculation of the mind thinking that if I allow anger to come, I'm gonna get stuck here in anger. No, 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 no. The moment that you remove the resistance and you allow the system, it feels like it sucks for how long? 2 hours?
Yeah.
Less
Or
than that.
sometimes even less. I find like it's not that long. And I think, again, so many, especially women, I can't speak to the male experience, but I can speak to the female experience. I feel like a lot of us are, yes, we've been trained to not show our emotions and we think that there's a strength in not allowing that or a protection in not allowing those feelings. And what I've found recently this year, I went through grief. And in the past, I would have, or I know I protected myself by just trying to push through and not feel that.
Mhm.
But the relief of letting yourself feel those emotions is you feel so much better afterwards, even though it does hurt to experience it.
Yeah,
And I think where breath work can be really beautiful is sometimes on our own, it's very difficult. Breath work allows us to, I think, process those emotions or feel those
yeah,
emotions in
yeah.
almost like a safer, controlled environment.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm gonna make a comparison, and actually, I was having this. I was in a panel 3 years ago with Timothy Zach Leary, the son of Timothy Leary, one of the top psychedelic experts from the 80s, etc. And so we were in a panel that was around psychedelics. And so he works with maps. He's legendary, Zach, a good friend of mine. And someone asked him, Zach, I don't from the audience, Zach, I don't have experience with psychedelics, but what would be a good entry point? And he grabs the microphone and he looks at me and he says, breathwork. Because, as you mentioned it allows us to have the control of the experience while, how I would call it, having one foot in this reality that is cognitive plus the other one that is more embodied, both at the same time. And for a person that is feeling these sensations too intense, guess what? You can stop following it and then you come back to this reality. And then when you want to come back in, jump in again.
Yeah. And that explains too, because there is a high that you can get from breath work that it feels like there's some other substance almost in your system when there
Yeah.
isn't. And to your point, you can back.
We would need to talk about that in another episode of all the studies that we're doing with that. This is completely different episode.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that and psychedelics too. It's so interesting. But I actually wanted to ask you, so there something that you said that stuck with me when I first met you was you said, like, have you been here before? And I had been to the center that you work where
Mhm.
you teach in Austin.
Yeah.
And I said, I've done breath work before. I've been here before. And you said, well, your nervous system doesn't recognize me or your nervous system doesn't know me. And the
Mhm.
reason that stuck with me is I think that we also, when we get into our heads about like things that we think that we know or understand and our body doesn't necessarily have the same information in the context that
Exactly.
our mind does.
Exactly.
And
So
so, yeah, go ahead.
tell me, what did you made out of that when I told you that?
I think what clicked for me is maybe that I think I had a moment of, oh, wow, I never think about that. I am so in my mind all of the time that it doesn't occur to me that my body might be having a different experience or an
Yeah,
unfamiliar experience.
yeah,
And I don't even allow for, I just don't consider my body's experience. And
exactly.
so your comment, sim- even though it's just a simple comment, it made me think, oh, wow, I've never considered what would be unfamiliar or familiar to my body as opposed to what I've normalized in my brain. And so
Yeah,
I think that kind of sums up the idea of just when we're living in our heads, we're so limited in our experience. And
yeah.
there's just a whole other world that we are not
Indeed.
accessing. And it's a very important world. And this is the world that's responsible for so much of our health and our happiness and our sleep and our functioning. And it's not our brain. It's not the thoughts in our brain.
It's not the mind. And so I will simplify it in this way. My theory about the mind is not that there is the mind and the body, but there is a spectrum of intelligence. Meaning we have here at the top layer, we have the rationality, the logical mind, the 0 1, the construction of language. And that's how you and I are communicating. But if you start going lower and lower in the layers of the intelligence, of these layers of intelligence, you have shorter or different other voices, sometimes voices that are difficult to hear. So, for example, we just uncovered one when we did the exercise of the bolt score. You had this memory, right? That's something deeper here. That was a felt sense. I'll call it a voice, but it's a message that your body sent you, right? Until you have the pure non-linguistic intelligence, which is running the entire body, especially when you're sleeping or when anyone's sleeping, right? Because there's an intelligence that it is breathing, that it is moving, that is processing digestion while we are sleeping, etc. Right? So all of these levels of intelligence are accessible. If we get stuck into this one, we're missing all the other ones. We're missing all the other ones. And the beauty is in practices like breathwork, it is we're able to dive, not knowing where we're going to land, but knowing that we're allowing this upper layer to take a quick break and then collect wisdom from here and then come to the surface and then make sense of that. That is one thing. And the other thing, I would call it within these layers of intelligence framework that I described, here is the understanding, but one of my mentors called this other one the grokking. So the body does not understand with words, only the mind of the upper layer of intelligence, but the body groks it. So in the first time that you were with me, Marisa, you understood that that was a safe space, that I was a facilitator, and that this is breathwork. Mine understood that one, upper layer. But it was only until after the end of the session when your body grokked it. Oh, now I understand what he meant.
Yes, exactly. And what you're making me think of too is I think a way that people talk about this I can't, never mind.
Colloquially, yeah.
My mouth can't do that right now. But the way that people talk about this often is intuition. And I think we talk about like what our gut is telling us versus what our mind is telling us. And I feel like that's a layer of what you're saying too, is that
Yep.
there's this intelligence that comes, our mind is very loud. It speaks in words, it yells, and our felt sense, our gut sense, our intuition is often
Yeah.
quieter. And we
Yep.
have to quiet our mind to even be able to hear it sometimes and to tap into
Yep.
that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do
Beautiful
you
said.
Do you notice, and I know we're getting to the end of time here, but I'm curious, our listeners are mostly women, but there are so many differences between men and women in terms of hormones and just the way our energy ebbs and flows
Mm-hmm.
throughout a month, for example. Are there any differences in breath work or how you would
Yeah.
recommend going about breath work for a woman versus a man?
Yeah. And I think I mentioned that in the store, actually, in the store on my website, we have a protocol that is for women based on the 4 stages of the cycle. And so to simplify things, definitely the levels of progesterone, the levels of sleep, the levels of stress in women are different. First of all, the lung capacity is different. A
Yeah.
man between a woman. So if I would tell someone you have to breathe 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, sometimes the mind blocks and like, have to get full air. No. It's like, take it easy. We have to custom tailor to your lung capacity, etc. So lung capacity is one thing. Second thing, as I mentioned, all the hormones around the cycle fluctuate. When there is a rise in progesterone, by definition, the respiratory system increases. So imagine that Bolt score is going to decrease, and a woman will think, "Oh my God, I'm failing with this course of breathing." Right? And they say, "No, no, 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 no. That's expected." So training breathing for women, for example, I do it 2 to 3 months, 3 to 4 months actually, so that they can see the different changes throughout their cycle. That is, if they have normal cycles. If they are peri or postmenopause, things equally change. So taking into consideration all of those factors, or even pregnant women, we're not going to do superventilation with them, but the functional breathing also changes because you have a baby that is pushing the organs, is pushing the diaphragm and the lungs, and so the mother will feel with less capacity for breathing. Okay, yeah, that's true. And now how do we adjust, find postures that allow proper oxygenation? So many factors there to take into account for women. As I mentioned, I have one of those ones that is in the store that is for 4 cycles, but it's one of the beauties of working with women that it allows so much creativity.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's sort of like everything from working, like even physical workouts, different workouts impact you differently or are maybe better for different parts of your cycle. Amazing. So, since we're getting to the end of time, if there's anything that you could leave the audience with, if they're wanting to start this breathwork journey or just a tip in terms of getting better in touch with this emotional language of your body, is there anything that you would leave the audience with today?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, Marisa, and it is what's the what's the moment that you focused on your breath, that you became aware of your breath today? That's the only question. If a person asks that question, when did I become aware of my breath today? Let's say for a week, things start to change. That's it.
So, it starts with awareness.
Awareness. That's it.
Amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much. I just have two quick questions. The first is, I want to know something you do to take care of yourself every day. We ask all of our guests. And then the second is, where can everyone find you on social media or your
Hmm.
website?
Over the last few months, what it has been helping me to take care of myself is, this is funny, but it's co-regulating with my partner. So we breathe in, sync. And to the point, this is so funny. Over the last 2 months, if I yawn, she yawns. So we're so connected that our nervous systems feel so in sync. It's for me, it's been over the last 2 months something that has worked a lot, and that doesn't need to be only with partners. We could do it with friends, etc.
That's
That's one
beautiful.
thing.
Can
Yeah,
parents do that with kids too to form a better?
yeah, of course,
Wow,
of course, of course.
so beautiful.
Yeah, thanks, Marisa. And people can find me at jjruescas.com. That is jjruescas.com or optimizingme.com. It also takes to the same place, and you'll find there all the things that I'm talking about in breathwork, technologies, and the combination of things that I'm passionate about.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. This was such an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
I'm going to work on my awareness and my breath. And I hope everyone else does too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marisa. Thank you, everyone.
If something in today's conversation resonated with you, take a moment to pause and notice where it's sitting within you.
Living in alignment is not about fixing yourself or becoming someone new. It's about listening, trusting, and slowly coming home to who you already are.
Thank you for spending this time with us and for being part of this community.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might resonate with it too. See you next time.